everyone and anyone who decides to listen to this podcast. This is Hot Mess But Blessed with myself, Olivia Vers, and this is episode 1. So this podcast, the idea came about the end of last year, beginning of this year, and me and the girls in work, we were all talking about, I want to start a podcast and all this kind of talk, but I really threw it in. I was like, right, girls, I'm going to buy the equipment. We're going to do it in cabin coach. We're going to talk, life in your 20s, growing up, figuring out, what you want to do, going through the good and the bad and everything like that. Wrote a little plan, and as it was kind of based in work, but was going to be like an outside of the business though. Like it wasn't going to be a podcast for cabin coach. It was going to be based there, but talking things, all the girly chat within the premises. So I rang my dad, and like I always did, I always rang him for advice, whether it was personal life or business. Like he was my mentor through and through every single day. So I gave him a call January 26th, and I said to him, I want to start this podcast. It was going to be called Shit My Boss Says. The funniest. But I put forward this little idea that we had, and he was like, go for it. He was like, I love listening to a podcast myself in the van. He was like, so go for it. So I had the heads up from him. I sent him all the stuff that got on his Amazon Prime account. And then the day after, he had a major accident which resulted in his death. And I've decided to continue the podcast idea because it was the last thing and the last idea, could say business idea, I had delivered to him. So I've tried to film this a million times, but going through grief is a very rocky road, and I'm still in the very early days, and it's all still very raw. A lot of denial, a lot of disbelief, moments where it feels so overwhelming. So here we are. I'm carrying on the podcast. I'm still going to follow it through, the idea. You could say as a dedication, dedicated to him, because he was on board with it, and he always was my number one cheerleader and supporter as well. So you will see what comes of this podcast and where it goes, how long I stick at it for. But I do really want to delve deep into life, because I am a pretty private person, I would say, but just going through so much trauma prior to this, and now currently the trauma of this and the grief that comes with it as well. I just want to talk about that on a platform, because when he had his accident and when he did pass away, I'm such a podcast girl anyway, but I completely reached out to look for grief podcasts. I find some amazing ones, and they really do help, because you feel so isolated and you feel like you're the only person in the world who's lost someone, when really there's thousands of us and then millions of us in the world who are literally experiencing this. But yeah, it's just insane how you do feel so isolated. So listening to those podcasts really gave me so much awareness of how I was feeling, and I'm someone who loves to talk. I love a good deep chat. So I feel like it just made sense to just do a podcast. I know this is going to start really small, and only people I know are going to hear about it and listen to it if you could decide to. But if one person searches this on Spotify or Apple, hears it, and it makes a difference for them, that's all I want. If I could help one person, or people can relate to me and be like, oh, do you know what, I feel like that, like I did when I listened to the podcast I chose to listen to. That's the goal, and that's amazing, because life's shit, so we may as well get through it together, but also, keep that positivity, keep that humour. I think that's, how I've dealt with it to a certain degree. I haven't really got an actual plan for this podcast episode, and my thinking is very non-linear, so I may be going all over the place, but I am going to kick in with the first point of, I've noticed everyone's grieving is different, And I heard this before I'd lost someone close to me, but being in it, I've actually realised how different everyone really is. So obviously, you know, my siblings, my mum, other people in the family, like how different we are all grieving. Sometimes similar, sometimes different. We'll be going through different stages at different times. Yeah, so I feel like as a collective though, for me and my family, I feel like we've definitely continued that just get up and go. Even the day that he died, it was just, let's keep going, let's keep it moving. You know, we carried on working. I mean, my brother, he had to take over my dad's business literally overnight. So the night he had his accident, which was January 27th, it was like literally from, you know, day after onwards, he just had to pick up this massive company and throw completely in the deep end, and he's had to, you know, figure this out whilst grieving and trying to manage. And you know, he's doing amazing, he's doing absolutely amazing, and we're all very, very proud of him of that. And he would be doing our dad Tudor so proud, and we all just beam with pride for him, and we know Tudor will be as well. But then I've got my little coffee shop, and my team are absolutely incredible. I would not have got through, I say that stage of life, but this stage of life without them. They are selfless, like they'll do everything they possibly can for me. So I was definitely given, I was able to take a lot of time off during the accident and the days after his death, because in the first 5 weeks after his accident, before he passed away, I was just in the hospital twice a day, just, you know, staying with family, spending time with friends. You know, it was just the craziest time, and I was very lucky. I still worked kind of like outside of typical working hours, so I'd always make sure I was going in the evening, making sure, you know, I was doing the orders and stuff like that. But as a collective, as a family, we definitely just had that get up and go motive, and to keep moving, keep motivated, because that is how Tudor raised us, and also what he implemented on us. He was such a businessman himself, and he was always just constant on the move 24/7. That man did not stop, and I know that's exactly what he'd want us to do as well. Like, he has given us that drive to keep going, because if he saw us stop, go into a dark hole, that state of depression, that I don't want to do anything, I don't want to see anyone, he would be so pissed off. So we really have just kept that motive to succeed still, and also just keeping that high energy as much as we possibly can. Obviously, it's such a horrific time, especially that we're in the early stages of grief as well. It's just so much disbelief and denial at this moment in time. For a while, it felt like it wasn't real. You felt like, because he worked away a lot, you thought he was going to come home. You know, everything was so raw. It still is. Like, you can remember last conversations we had with him, remember his laugh, remember his voice, remember what he'd done, like, you know, at the start of the year or at Christmas. Like, everything is still so fresh and raw. And I think it is wearing off a little bit now, that thought of him coming home, but it was very much like that in the first couple of weeks of his death. And those moments though, where the disbelief and the denial kind of dropped, and you had that overwhelming sense of, oh my God, they really aren't here anymore. Like, he isn't going to walk through the door again, he isn't going to ring me again, I can't ring him again, I can't share this good news with him, or share this this random shitty story that, you know, over the phone with him. And those moments are just so overpowering, and they absolutely cripple you and break you, and the sadness and the tears are just so overbearing. I for me, and I think my mum as well, like, that will last for anything from like 2 to 4 days, I feel. And then you kind of come out of it a little bit, and, you know, you're kind of getting yourself together again, you're getting motivated to do things, you know, trying to keep that high energy, because my sister's only 12, and she's another reason behind us keeping that motivation, high energy, high spirit, you know, that positivity, that, you know, that happiness, because she needs that. She needs that, and he wouldn't want anything less for her. He'd want like our lives to go into her now, and to make sure she has the best life possible, which we will absolutely do. And, you know, his legacy that he's left behind is just an inspiration, and the reason why we are you know, continuing life the way we are, because you do feel like you want the world to stop. And I seen Ed Sheeran's documentary, and he said when his best friend Jamal died, he said he wanted the world to stop, he like just the way that it did for the Queen. And that is exactly how it feels. You just want the world to stop, but it doesn't. The world keeps turning, the sun keeps rising and setting, and, you know, the days keep going and life keeps moving. And this is just like the shitty stages of life that no one can avoid. Death is inevitable. It's the only thing guaranteed in life, and it's crazy how you actually never know when it's going to come. Like, I hadn't lost anyone close to me until my dad, and obviously that was sudden. And honestly, you do not think you're going to wake up that morning, and in the evening, like, I watched my dad fall to his death, basically. I don't want to talk about, obviously, what happened too much right now, but I probably will eventually. Obviously, like, I know those people will know the story who listen to this, but obviously, because it is on like a platform, I feel like that is a separate story in itself, because it was a traumatic brain injury, and that is a whole other conversation, which I actually want to talk about in a separate episode, because those 5 weeks in hospital, I want that to be an episode in itself, because that was a journey, that was a process. I learned a lot. Being the family member of someone who suffered a traumatic brain injury was crazy. So I do want that to be an episode in itself. But I've lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Oh, how you just never know what's going to happen. So yeah, so we went to like an event, a big family event in the evening, all his closest family and friends. And it's just crazy, because you think that morning he like would have had no idea he was going to die that night. You know, my sister didn't know that was going to be the last time she'd say bye to her dad. And same with us, when we were at the party with them, who would have known? We were like moments away from that happening. So it's just crazy, and it is just something that we will all experience at different times. I don't know if lucky enough's the word, but my best friend lost his dad at the same age as me, in like a sudden way as well. So I was lucky enough to have him to kind of coach me through this, like he does with everything else in life. But yeah, I think it's like the luckiness of the unluckiness, if that even makes any sense whatsoever. But he has been right there next to me along the way, you know, kind of validating my feelings, like, because the emotions that come with it, like the anger, the upset, the shutting down, the good days, and then you feel guilty for having the good days. And that's something that struck me bad, was the guilt that comes with living after death of a loved one. Because, like, going back to the point of, you do want the world to stop, you think everything should just shut down, but you keep going. And the guilt I had from, you know, I literally was getting my nails done, like, literally a few days after he died, and like, you sit there and you think, oh my god, like, my dad's dead, like, he died a few days ago, but you'd enjoy, like, I'd be talking to my nail tech, like, enjoying myself, just having a little girly chat, whatever, little goss, and then you get that overwhelming sense of guilt of, how am I out here in the salon getting my nails done when my dad's died? But I think that guilt is something we all experience in grief, and I still do now. Like, if I'm out having a meal, or doing anything, like, you know, going to the pub. It's just like that guilt you get is just absolutely insane. But what else are you gonna do? You have no choice but to just carry on living and continuing your life just the way they'd want you to. And to, you know, they, even though like my dad's life was cut short, he was 52 when he died, but like he lived his life to the motherfucking max, that man. Like he would have died a very happy man, no regrets whatsoever, like an absolute inspiration. And he'd be drilling into us to do the exact same thing. Lives for living, we don't know when we're gonna die. Like, how do we not know? Like, how do I not know I'm not gonna be here for like another year or another 40 years or another 60 years? Like, it's insane. It's just absolutely mind-blowing. I keep saying this, but it really is. So just keep living that life and, you know, experiencing those like valuable moments and knowing what matters. Because even when my dad was here, I think one thing me and my family that we have is that we don't have any regrets whatsoever. My dad, Tudor, he told us so often how much he loved my mum, how much he loved like us as a family, and he always like, we knew how much joy we brought him in life. And I told him, especially like in cards and letters and text messages and to his face, I just was always I'd pour my love out to him and my gratitude and how lucky I was to have him. And he knew that. And I've got texts on my phone and they're so lush to read back now, because I'm like, he really did know. And like, this might sound weird, but I'm so filled with joy that I have that, because a lot of people probably lose people and have regrets or regret things they didn't say. But I am going to say, like, I'm so grateful for my family and for him, of just how we expressed our love for one another daily, and we all idolised each other, and we still do. So I think that would be my one piece of advice, is always telling people that you love the shit out of them, you know, showing how much you care for them. And it's not about the larger things in life, it really is about those small moments that matter the most. So that would definitely be continued on now for the rest of our lives. And, you know, grief is a crazy thing. It really, really is. What else was I going to talk about? I'm just looking at my little notes here. Talking about the funeral. So the funeral, for me, I am super duper controlling, gonna say it, very much am. I like to be in control of things. So when it came to funeral planning, I kind of naturally came to the forefront a little bit with my mum to help her out with it, because obviously it was such a hard time for her and obviously all of us. But I feel like, I mean, quote me if I'm wrong, Mum, but I feel like I definitely balanced it out for her. So where she was obviously and is absolutely heartbroken, she's lost the love of her life, I feel like I go into like this fight mode where I'm like, right, we need to do this, we need to make it perfect, this is the last thing we can do for him, this needs to be incredible. And yeah, we planned the funeral together, and having that motive, because we did have quite a bit of a gap between the death and the funeral. I think it was about 5 weeks again, because we literally wanted it to be so perfect. Like, we wanted it on like a Friday morning, so we could have I say wake, but my dad always said he wanted a party, so we wanted the party on the Friday afternoon, because he loved a Friday night. So yeah, we planned it far in advance, and we just made sure every detail, and is it obituary? Am I saying that right? But that was like the celebrant we had, Katie. She was incredible, like absolutely incredible. We're actually going to message her to see if she wants to meet up for a coffee and just to thank her, because like the funeral directors we used, Heavy Brothers, which is where we live. They were incredible. Like James Tivy and then Katie Pugsley, the celebrant, they made such a truly shitty time. So, what's the word? So calm? Like, I don't know if that's the word, but it just, yeah, they made a truly shitty time feel okay and feel manageable. And they pulled it together incredible, and everyone said how amazing the service was. They thought Katie was a close family friend and that she knew Tudor because she delivered it so well. And that'll be something I'll always be grateful for as well, because in my eyes the funeral was the last thing we could do for him, and we had to just fight through that pain and upset of planning it. And oh my god, so many tears came when we were planning it, and we were talking about his life, and we were going through pictures and videos, and oh my god, the breakdowns that we had were just crazy. But we nailed it. We absolutely nailed it. I'm gonna say it, like, and I'm so proud of that as well. I'm so proud of the way we came together, and just really, as a family, we did him so proud. And he wouldn't have wanted anything less than what we did. We really done the most. More is more. So yeah, but then after the funeral, then so you're so busy doing all the planning, and you're constantly editing the eulogy and stuff like that, and then you plan the music, you plan we did like a little photo, I don't know, slideshow, whilst people waited for us to turn up. But it's that constant, you've got that purpose, you've got that reason to keep going during that time. And then the funeral was great, we had the best time. It sounds so weird, but we had the best time. Like, we had such a good celebration for him, which he would have wanted. And then the next day then, honestly, I could imagine that is what planning a wedding feels like. The next day, considering I was so strong on the day of the funeral, the next day I just was flat. I was so deflated. I felt empty and almost like an anticlimax. I know the funeral isn't something to look forward to, which we weren't looking forward to it, but just where it was really high spirit at, the party, in Tudor's words, the next day it just felt like that's it, and it felt like a chapter was closed, which is disgustingly enough essentially it is. But it's a chapter that we will always talk about. Like, he will be spoken about for the rest of our lives, every single day. Like, he won't be forgotten about. Like, he will not fade away. He made such an impact on everyone he met. Like, honestly, if you met them for 5 minutes, or if you knew them for 5 years, he made such an impact on everyone's life. And that's a true inspiration for me and my family and everyone who knew him to, the legacy he's left behind is incredible, and that is what everyone should kind of aspire, to be and to have, because when you die, people remember how you made them feel. I know it's such a cliche, how they made you feel. And yeah, so even though it feels like a chapter's closed, it hasn't, to a certain degree, because it won't be when it's forgotten. And he truly is the best man on earth. And like I said, I'm still in the very early days of grief. I sometimes have days where I can almost have this dark humour about it, which is exactly what he was like. And then other days I can be absolutely ruined and just cry all day, all day, every day. Because Eyes Closed was one of the funeral songs, and every time it comes on the radio, you best believe I am singing my heart out, but also crying like a bitch some days when it comes on. And the girls in work are exactly the same. It comes on the radio and we're just either crying or got our arms in the air, singing our hearts out, because the words and the lyrics in that are so meaningful. It's an incredible song, and it will always remind me of him. So yeah, I think I am going to actually wrap that up. It's kind of a brief, chat, but it's the first episode. I will delve deeper probably into more of the grief, because I'm on this journey. I'm very early days. He only died the 1st of March. Today is what day is it? The 10th of May. So I'm still very raw, and I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot about grief on the way. So I'll be back with more updates in terms of how I'm feeling and what stage of grief I'm at. And you know, other areas as well in terms of like the hospital side, the traumatic brain injury side, the encounters with the, you know, kind of hospital staff, kind of like what I learned and, you know, the comfort that they bring you. So yeah, so a quick, I think this could be quick, I don't know, first episode, which will hopefully lead on to more in-depth, juicy episodes. I've got a lot of ideas for episodes to come up, not just about grief either, about general, like, you know, mental health, neurodiversity, you know, business, personal life, good and bad things, you know, life in our 20s, like I keep saying. So yeah, I'm going to round that up for today's episode, and I hope you all enjoyed, and let's see what's to come.